Welcome, everyone. The reading for 12 October from Emmett Fox is titled God Works with Joy. And he writes, "Don't pray or meditate as a duty. Realize that prayer is a visit with God and should be joyous. Neither must you pursue your secular activities as necessary duties to be gotten over with, that you may return to your prayer. In the light of truth, there are no secular activities. You must have regular recreation, or you will become stale. Recreation also is to be enjoyed as an expression of God, and not as a task to prepare yourself to pray better. And understanding joy in living is the highest prayer of all." And then from Psalm 16, "In thy presence is fullness of joy." So, we're lucky enough that Lori Kay is going to talk today. Would someone be kind enough to, like Lori Kay, tell us what the title is?
It's the unseen path.
Let us hear your thoughts.
Path. Thank you for your kindness, Brian, as ever. You guys know, if you've been paying attention to all the things I talk about, which of course you are, you always do, that I'm always looking for, how do we get closer? How do we get deeper into the knowing, the experience of God as us, in us, through us, all of it? And I've gone through very many areas. I've come to the understanding that we are all energy first and foremost, and always are. I have confronted many a dogma, many a spiritual ism. I like to define my terms because we live in a social structure and a religious structure that we have taken as it's been fed to us. And we haven't yet questioned it in such a way that we can open those doors on a regular basis within ourselves. And I stumbled across a man on YouTube 2-3 weeks ago who has completely changed a fundamental belief of mine. And I can't even name the belief because it's one of those core beliefs that is like a spider's web, and it goes out and it touches every single part of my psyche, of my mind, of my expectations, of my beliefs. It is groundbreaking. And he started this and did this back in the 1990s. I was fortunate to find a group that follows his writings and his teachings. He's now 91. He lost his wife of 60 some years a couple of years ago. So he's not in the best of shape at this point. But his work is amazing. And I want to share with you the book within a book that is the Bible, and how he uses history, physics, astrology to look at what is actually written in the Bible to explore what it really means. The first thing I remember him saying in the very first one that I watched, and he's got something like 800 or more of these videos on YouTube. He said, "Look, you guys," and he's very funny. He's from New Jersey, so he's got a bit of that accent, and he's got the, he uses the Yiddish word fakakta all the time, which just cracks me up because he comes from, his name is Bill Donahue, Donahue. You'll find him under Bill or William, both. And so he's like, what? Do you think this is about some fakakta naked people running around in a garden talking to a snake that talks? Are you kidding me? Like, he doesn't do it with that accent, but he's just very, very funny. And he says, "Look, you guys, The Bible was not written by guys at Princeton. It was written by Eastern mystics. It was written by people of the desert who spoke in allegory, who spoke in symbolism of core truth. And unless you understood what you were reading, you couldn't use it, which was rather the point, according to Kabbalists. That those who would make a bad use of it, why should they have access to this incredible information? As an overview, as an overthing, and this is for you to consider within yourself. The Bible really is a how-to manual for each one of us. And it's not about behavior. When we read these things, when we read these stories as stories that are preaching behavior in order to get to, we are missing it. We're missing the path. The Bible, and I will show you some of this, this is so extremely exciting and fascinating to me, has to do with how to evolve ourselves through the mind, how to use our mind, how to control our mind. And I'm talking about the brain. And also how to operate within the electromagnetic fields of the body. This is so seeing through the veils of time and space that it's blowing my mind. So, for instance, an allegory, right? An allegory is where we say something, but we don't necessarily mean what we're saying. We do it all the time. Let's go shoot the bull. We don't mean go get a gun and kill an animal, right? We don't mean that. We mean we're going to go talk. We're going to go chat. We're going to go waste some time, but it's not wasted because we're going to have fun together. That's shoot the bull or spill the beans. You know, if that were a biblical injunction that we saw Jesus spilling beans, we'd be running around for the last 2 millennia going, I didn't spill them correctly, or I didn't use the right kind of beans. It's not what it's about. The Bible uses that same technology to speak in the symbolism that we have not understood. So let's look at some of the veils that he removes with humor, with fact, with history, with all of this, with the Bible itself. It's so fascinating. Okay, now Genesis. Here's an idea for you to consider. Genesis is not, nope, I'm not going to spoil it. Hold on, let me start over. Let's go to Genesis. In Genesis 1:27, it says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, created he him, male and female. Okay, that's first of all. And actually, a verse before, in verse 26, God says, let us make man in our image. Not in my image, in our image. God is male and female. God is not a singularity. God is not a man. God is. And that isness in nature and in us and in everything is male and female. Always. So he says, God is part female. That's a stunner for the boys' clubs of the Christian faith, right? The ones who go, no, it has to be a man. I'm sorry. It is said in the Bible, God said, let us make man, meaning human, in our image. And then God created him, male and female. Okay, cool. That's really interesting. It does make sense that would be removed in terms of our understanding. It would be glossed over because one of the parts of every religion is to get rid of the female, or if not to get totally rid of her, to get rid of her power, turn Mary into a prostitute instead of the priestess that she actually was. So from Genesis 1:28, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the word there that is incredible is the word replenish. God didn't say, here's a new thing, new toy for you to play with. You're the first people on this particular thing called a planet. Go out and make it good. No, God said, replenish the earth. What is being talked about? Was Earth this other thing before and now it's been recreated? This is like Earth 2.0. I mean, like, what are we talking about here? If we are talking about consciousness, what if all of the Bible is referring to our own evolution of our consciousness, the earth is the two sides of the brain that were completely clear of dogma, training, put downs, you know, like all of the stuff that we learned growing up. When we first were born, it was clear. And then, you know, we come into an environment. When you're in an environment, it is very strong. It's not that you're weak. It's just that you don't have the tools and it structures how you are. So the idea is replenish, put it back the way it was. It makes sense that it would be us. It would be our consciousness. It would be our alignment with what we just thought we left, which we never leave. So he talks about the two sides of the brain. This is the practical, strategic side. And so he talks about that as the 10% that we use, that 10% that people always talk about. They say you only use 10% of your brain. What they're referring to, according to Bill, is this is the West. Anytime in the Bible that it refers to they came from the West or they went into the West, it's this. Anytime they came from the East, like, oh, the wise men, it's from here. The 90% that we're not using, the 90% we're not tapping into, because we have so many things, so many beliefs and structures and social things and religious things that are telling us that we have got to ask permission. We've got to work super hard. We have all kinds of ideas about what it will take to truly connect. And back in the day, before the word God was inserted as a sort of, I don't know, non-sexual thing that then was defined as he, God's name was Elohim. And I looked it up, and linguistically, this is the masculine and the feminine. That's what this is. That's what it meant. That's what it is. Ellie can speak more cogently to this than I can, but I did look it up, and Elohim is masculine and feminine. And the word God was inserted because it had no gender. And then the gender he was affixed to it. What that does to the feminine psyche is incredibly damaging. And it's damaging for women in a social structure that followed that path. And it's damaging in the masculine mind as well, because it cuts them off from their sensitivity and their connection to the divine. Now, traditional Christianity cannot deal with the feminine. It just cannot. It cannot deal with it. It doesn't want to hear it. It wants to make the feminine this thing that like it wants to make it Eve. It's Eve's fault that the fall of man. It's Eve's fault. And like I said, Mary is a prostitute. No, she wasn't. She was probably married to Yeshua, and she was a priestess. If we knew that en masse, but even just keep it individual, if we knew that, and I mean if we could feel the truth of that and understand the truth of that, having that alignment, that's the kind of thing that reverberates for me with the phrase, the truth shall set you free. That's the kind of truth that's being talked about. When you see the actual truth that connects to you as you truly are, that's when you're set free. And what it means is you suddenly see the falsehood, and you don't have to do anything. It just falls away. Not all this hard work of let me work for 20 years and get nowhere. I mean, that's enough of that. This is the age for this kind of awakening. It's amazing. Okay. Genesis chapter 3 is when Adam and Eve come in. Now, what is that about? In Genesis 1, God created man. What was it? God created he them, male and female. Created he him, male and female. So why are we then going back and going, wait, now we're going to create woman? That doesn't make sense. We're going to go to Genesis 3. That doesn't make any sense. So what if this isn't at all about the creation of the female? What if this is about Adam being, because God already said we're going to call the male and female Adam. God does say that in the Bible. It is written that God says we will call this male and female being Adam. What if Adam is really Atom? And what if instead of, some mean old God reaching down and grabbing a rib out of the poor guy and like throwing, creating a whole woman out of this, what if this is the splitting of the atom? What if this is the creating of life? What if this is about starting at the beginning of us, each one of us, in this incarnation, whichever incarnation it is that we come to this understanding? We go, so I was created from both sides. I was created from the feminine and the masculine. I was created from the profane and the divine. I was created from all of this. What if it's about that? And the snake is the kundalini, that energy that goes up the spine as we awaken. I actually felt that once. And it literally did feel like a snake at the bottom of my spine. I was like, what is, and it lasted for maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds. I went, whoa, that's probably 40 years ago now. But it feels like a snake. It's crazy. In Genesis 5, there's a description of the creation. This is the book of the generations of Adam. That doesn't mean from the man, because male and female created he them, and he called their name Adam. Their name. All energy is male and female. We are the cosmic God. We are of and with and shot through. We are like we. Do you remember some weeks ago, months ago, I was talking and I said how if you are connecting to the divine and you understand that your energy, it's like you are the trunk of a tree. In your human form, you're the trunk of a tree. And as you go up like this, it's like the branches of your energetic branches are up there holding to all the other energetic branches of each other. There is no separation energetically. So this speaks to me of that. The Bible, in all of its stories, when you read it in this new way, which I will, it's the genesis of you, the individual you, from birth, and how you can see what's going on, how you can deal with things. And he says, you'll learn a tremendous secret of your own evolution because you're behind the words, and you'll see the evolution of your own mind. So just given what I've said so far, the whole God the Father thing is demolished by what? By the Bible. It's father, mother, it's mother, father, it's the energy, it's Adam, it's the whole thing. So I want to give you an example of something. And it's something that I remember I said to Teresa, I think a week ago. Well, two things. First of all, if we're using 10% here, how do we get the 90% to come online? How do we do that? And that's finally somebody told me that's what meditation is for. Make room for this. And he even describes this side, the feminine side of the brain, as the Garden of Eden. This is your Garden of Eden. We left it. We felt ashamed. We felt separated from. We felt confused. We didn't see ourselves as whole. And with all of our conditioning, we live from here. This is what I need to physically do. This is what I need to physically think. This is what I need to physically plan. Where's all the intuition and the connection that, like, Brian has it when he does his readings from spirit, but understanding that this is us. This mother says, Amachi says, I have no special place to dwell. I dwell in your heart. She doesn't even say I. She says mother has no special place to dwell. She dwells in your heart. Take it literally. Take it literally. If you want to get further in your letting yourself off the hook, take it literally. When you have an aha or an epiphany, it's not, you didn't do it here. It came from here. It comes from here, translates here, because once you experience something, this side of the brain can tell you about it. But until you experience something new, physically, psychologically, spiritually, until you experience it, that side of the brain cannot tell you about it. Because it takes from the place that says, I can only tell you what has happened to me and what I've made of it. And that's where trauma lives. That's where trauma lives. So when we live in trauma for such a long time and then understand, if I could bring this in, if I could make room for something lighter, which is exactly what happened to me 3 years ago with the depression. And that, I mean, think about it. If letting in a slightly different energy, a higher idea could cure 40 years of the clinical part of depression in 5 days, what can we not do? So then the question is, how do we do it? Because we're like, well, shoot, I've been trying. No, we haven't. We've been doing all of the things that we've been taught to do. Let me blame myself. Let me try to behave differently. Let me try to make myself think differently. Let me try it. There's a lot of trying in this. The one thing I've never understood is what meditation is really for. I've heard a million people, not really, I'm exaggerating, but I've heard so many people say different ways to meditate and why. But I never felt settled in myself about why, what am I waiting for? What's the end game? What am I doing it for? Am I waiting for like an internal, am I waiting to be enlightened? Am I waiting for Jesus to descend on a white horse and talk to me in person? Like, what am I waiting for? What am I doing it for? Because that's the culture I grew up in. I need to understand why. I also have a very strong need to define my terms. And it is, as I understand it now, you do not have to understand it this way, but as far as I understand it now, and what makes it worth doing for me now after all these years, is making room for my Garden of Eden, for me to elevate into that space where my two eyes become one. And I see only with the eye of truth. I forget what the biblical phrase is. You see with the single eye, that's what it is. And this man, in talking about all of the different things he talked about, like I said, about 800, if not more, videos on YouTube that I'm taking notes on, and I'm downloading the videos and I'm downloading the transcripts because I don't want them to disappear, is backing up everything I've learned up to now about energy, about our oneness with the divine. And it's doing it using the very book that we have been harmed by because religion took it and made it into something it isn't. So next week, I will talk about specific stories from the Bible, like what they really mean, because all of it is mind opening for me. All of it is just like, thank you. And all that truth is setting me free. I just feel like, oh, I feel clear now. I'm not done getting clearer, but I feel clear now. There you go. That's your first introduction to this way of looking at things.
Thank you. What you're talking about reminds me so much of how Sister Pepper explained the Bible. It's almost as if you're channeling her in a sense. So nice associations there. So anyone have some comments, questions, thoughts about this? Leah?
I like your talk, Lori. I never heard of that Bill Donahue person, but on the Next Level Soul, he's had different people that gone in there and say, hey, you know, and I find that fascinating. So I look at things just a little different, but at the same time, but that's just it. You know, how we perceive things. It could be the same thing, like that old saying about the elephant, and you have seven blind men, filling it, and they see it differently, but it still boils down, it's an elephant. And so listening to that and this and that, and yeah, he was married to Mary Magdalene. It's just the men back then, they did not appreciate women. They would have more value in livestock than they would in a female. So that's why certain things, plus the Bible, whatever, it was not written until after Jesus was already gone. And he did, leave Jerusalem, wherever it was at. So it's all that. And he did talk in stories because people, that's how they remember things. Because really, if you listen to a story, you're more apt to remember it than if you just read it. But back then, you were not taught how to read and write. That's why they had what they call them, scribes, that would write for you and everything, because I would say about 90% of the people did not know how to read and write. And Jesus never wrote anything down himself. It was all word of mouth. And there was just a few of them that didn't know how to write. But again, how did they perceive it? How did they write the story? Then you got people saying, okay, that's Arabic. Okay, let me do it in Greek. Let me do it in Latin. Let me do it in this language and that language, and blah, 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 blah. And so things kind of, yeah, then you got men, of course, that still want control. They still want power. And so, yeah, the stories, you do have to be careful. And there are people that do research it and realize certain things. That's like Bill Donahue you were talking about. They did research it, they studied it, they learned from different books, not just one book, one chapter, one verse. They got several and compared notes, saying, well, this guy was saying this guy was saying that. Which one really, sometimes you need a third or fourth research to realize certain things. So yeah, I do find, and I found more lately, I've been finding out more and more information. And I was not brought up where my religion believed in the New Testament anyway. In fact, they try to say Jesus never existed. But even as a child, that's just it. What resonated inside you? Because even back then, I knew he existed. I knew he was not a figment of imagination, because they try to say he never existed, but a part of me knew. Of course, they also try to say that about angels too, but being a young child and things happen even before that religion and this and that. So that's just it. What beliefs have you been taught? What creates how you delve into this stuff? What resonates? What doesn't? And to me, when I went in the Air Force, that's when to me I was more open to the different things because I had never been exposed to them. And you had these different people going to different religions. It's like, oh, okay. Of course, I never got into holy roly thing, but I prayed like I'd gone to a Catholic church more than once. Couldn't tell you what all they did. And sometimes I probably couldn't understand it anyway. But I knew, like when they kneeled to pray, well, I knew how to pray. So I didn't mind kneeling. I don't care what that priest or whoever it was. If you say pray, well, duh. Isn't that what you're supposed to do anyway? Because I normally just, to me, my prayers are talking to God anyway. So there you go. So it's all this, to me, more and more is coming into play, and the feminine side is being allowed to come into play more and more so, because we cannot survive on just half of whatever, because we are a whole woman and male. And so, yeah, it's coming more and more to play. So I will shut up for now. Thank
Thank you, Leah. Ellie,
you.
you're next.
Enjoyed your talk, Lori. You were saying that Bill Donahue was pointing a lot of this stuff out, how male and female were created. In the Bible it says this, and it does. It says all that. I mean, in the Hebrew it's taught. Elohim is a masculine, feminine. Hawa means to live, to be alive, to revise, to restore to life. And even in that, there's male and female. Rock, the word for spirit, is the feminine. So, as above, so below. So when we were created, even in the beginning, Elohim is showing that he created male and female, the head and the heart. The head usually refers to the masculine, the heart to the feminine. So, Elohim is showing that already in the masculine and the feminine. Otherwise, only the masculine, Ha-Dam, would have been created. And yes, he spoke, the divine Elohim, Yeshua spoke in parables because that's what the people were used to. He talked to what was familiar of that time. He spoke in the idioms, as you were saying. And to be able to understand the idioms that he spoke in is to understand, what he was talking about. The Hebrew is concrete and parallel and circular. So when you understand that, when you're talking with point A, it always comes back around to that same point, to point A. It's not Greek or linear or Western mind set. When you say A means B means C, C means D, D means E, all the way down. It's not hard to understand. And it also deals with the five senses. Taste, sight, smell. So it's things that we deal with on an everyday basis. In the Hebrew, when someone says what's beyond the horizon, the answer is I don't know. Why? Because you don't see what's beyond the horizon. So it's a very simple concept. If you can't see it, taste it, hear it, smell it, it's not there. But the energy is there. So yes, you can feel it, you can taste it. As King David said, taste and see that the Lord is good. We all know how to taste. We all know how to see. And when you look at it that way, sure, there are the five senses. But then in the spiritual sense, There's more than 5. And those of us that deal with energy, we know this. There's a spiritual sight. There's a spiritual tasting. There's a spiritual smell. You know, how many of us have all stepped in a room and smell something, yet it's not, you know, no one else can smell it? Well, that smell is only meant for us. An energy smell, if you will, or a perfume, or a smell of cinnamon, or a smell of something. And when we say, "Did you smell that?" someone else is like, "Smell what?" So he does show us in the beginning, you know, that there is the male and the female. I saw something the other day dealing with hermetrics that before King James got a hold of the scripture, or the canonized scriptures, I should say, you know, the books of the Apocrypha, Tobit, there's other books of the Apocrypha that were removed, and the reasons why. I'll send it in an email and Brian can send it out. But it was very interesting how those things that, you know, we're seeing in those other books, you know, are not seen anymore because we do not have those that made available to us. So these things, Lori, that you were bringing out aren't, you know, really aren't really new. They've always been there. They're there for our discovery. And, you know, by the time the patriarchal system was put into place, those things weren't focused on as much as before, but they've always been there. The feminine has always been there. It's just been pushed out of the way. For those who wanted to be in charge or threatened by the feminine power. So, you know, I do appreciate the talks that you bring forth, you know, when to refocus on the feminine. Diana, the moon, the sun and the moon. Again, creation speaks, the sun being masculine, the moon being feminine. So it's always been there, the masculine and feminine. Just another example in creation that shows us that it was created that way. So thank you, Lori, for your talk.
Thank you, Ellie. Teresa?
So yeah, Lori and I'd heard a lot about this already, and from our discussion, and it's like mind-boggling, you know, especially the part about the Garden of Eden being the right side, the creative side of our brain, and that that just blows me away. I love that, and also what she just said, and maybe you just made this up, or maybe it's something that people, maybe it defines the third eye, but you said it just means seeing with the both sides of your brain. And that's like, woo, that's cool. That makes total sense. And that reminds me that I can get real stuck in the logical side and the left side so much. There are times when in my life when I would be standing there like talking to my boss, and I feel like I've left my body, and it's like the stress of trying to live logic all the time. And I know now as a mature person that, you know, I have to feed my soul. I have to open up that other side. I have to come out in the nature. I have to do my yoga, um, whatever, that I have to open up that side and feed it for me to feel balanced. And then I do have intuition when I have a problem that feels like it has absolutely no answer. And that's when you can open up that other side and feed your soul. That's when all of a sudden you get some intuition, you get that third eye, and you get, oh, okay. And then you're calm and it makes sense because you're using both sides of the brain. So yes, thank you very much, my friend. Excellent job.
Thank you,
So glad
Teresa.
you came. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for joining us. Be blessed this week. Do good work. Lift up the world. And looking forward to seeing you again next week.
Amen.
Take good care, everybody.
Amen.
Bye-bye now.